Hey everybody, it's Uncle Scott, and welcome back to the QwerkyReax channel. I saw Deadpool and Wolverine just the other day. It was awesome. I love the Deadpool movies. I love the way Ryan Reynolds did what he did with the character. It's so perfect for him. But I wanted to talk about some of the Easter eggs I saw, very specifically to the ones that relate to John Candy. Now, if you don't know who John Candy is, he was a huge actor in the 80s, comedic actor, came up through SCTV, which is like an improv thing. Kind of think of it as like Saturday Night Live, but in the Midwest. Candy was huge, a whole bunch of great movies. You should really go see them. There's so much good stuff out there. But what's really cool is that Ryan Reynolds, John Candy's like his favorite actor. And there's one movie of his, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which John Candy starred in with Steve Martin, that Ryan Reynolds like loves that movie, loves it to death. And so he's been incorporating little Easter eggs, little hat tips to John Candy and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles in the Deadpool movies. Okay, now for starters, you should know Ryan Reynolds, Colin Hanks, Tom Hanks' son, Colin Hanks, who's an actor and director in his own right, are making a John Candy documentary together. John Candy died way too young and is also Canadian, as is Ryan Reynolds. So I think Ryan Reynolds is producing it. I think Colin Hanks is producing and directing it, but it should be coming out sooner or later, obviously. I'm excited to see it, but I'm a huge John Candy fan. So that makes me super excited about all the John Candy Planes, Trains, and Automobiles references in the Deadpool movies. Now, apparently, Ryan Reynolds was carrying around a book that John Candy has in the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles movie. He's carrying it around in Deadpool 1, but we never see it on screen anywhere. But Ryan swears that he had it on set with him all the time. In Deadpool 2, you actually see the book. So here's the book in the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles scene.
I know you, don't I?
And so Ryan had that book kind of recreated for him to be reading, and you'll notice it's almost the same position in Deadpool 2.
Wade. Wade.
Come in. Hey, just doing a little bit of light reading here.
And here, I'll show them side by side. You can see they did a really good job of making this look like kind of the same shot, which is so awesome. So that's a pretty good hat tip, right? Now, another thing that happened in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is the car that John Candy and Steve Martin are driving around in, it just gets destroyed. They needed to drive around in the car because Del, John Candy's character, has this huge trunk of clothes that he has to carry with him wherever he goes, right? Know that the trunk is synonymous with Del Griffin, and then the car that they were driving in, it catches on fire while they're driving in it, and it gets like demolished. And so it's kind of becomes like an icon of the movie. Here, I'll show you a scene of it right here.
Well, one good thing about it, with all this fresh air, we're gonna sleep like babies.
So yeah, that thing's fried. And then remember, I told you there's that big trunk that Del carries with him everywhere, right? In Deadpool and Wolverine, in the new movie, when they drop into the void after they beat, Xavier's twin sister, and they don't even beat her, I think. They just escape from her. And they're in the, like, somewhere else in the void, and they're walking around trying to get away or trying to figure out their next move. If you look really closely, you'll see this. See it right there? That's the front of the burnt out car from the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles movie. And then you can see the trunk. That's Del's trunk right in front of it, which is Ryan giving a hat tip to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. But that's not all. So I didn't mention it for the Deadpool 2 one, and I didn't mention it yet for Deadpool and Wolverine, but there is actually there's a very famous scene in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. If you haven't seen that movie, I'm warning you now. It's not a spoiler because it happens like kind of in the first quarter of the movie, but it is like an important moment from the movie. And it's this really emotional scene where John Candy delivers like one of the best performances ever. Steve Martin's character is yelling at him, and telling him like what a terrible person he is and how he's impossible to be around and everything else. And John Candy's character comes back and says this.
It's like going on a date with a chatty Cathy doll. I expect you to have a little string on your chest, you know, that I pull out and have to snap back. Except I wouldn't pull it out and snap it back. You would. And by the way, you know, when you're telling these little stories, here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
You want to hurt me? Go right ahead if it makes you feel any better. I'm an easy target. Well, you think what you want about me. I'm not changing. I like me. My wife likes me.
It is so hard to watch that clip without crying. Like he does it so well. And you can just, when he like catches, I like me, and he kind of catches it in his throat, it has that little stutter. It's just, that's like acting perfection. And he does it so effortlessly. Anyway, not a lot of people realize this maybe, or remember it. I'm not trying to be mean to other people. I haven't heard a lot of people mention it, but there's this scene in the kitchen of Deadpool 2, and it's even before you see the book reference that I just showed you before. Check this out.
Let her go. It's okay. She has a right to be skeptical. Look at me. I'm an easy target. And for the first time in a long while, I like me.
And of course, if you've seen the new Deadpool movie, don't worry if you haven't, this isn't a spoiler, but if you've seen the new Deadpool movie, you remember the very opening scene has a mug in it. And what does it say on that mug?
He's not dead. Sure, it made for a perfect ending to a very sad.
Says it right there. I like me. How awesome is that? And it's so blatantly obvious to anyone who understands like how much he loves John Candy, but at the same time, it's not. It's subtle but obvious at the same. I love stuff like that. This was a lot of fun to discover, and I've always loved how much Ryan Reynolds loves John Candy because I love John Candy. If you haven't seen John Candy movies, you absolutely, totally need to. Like, go look up his repertoire and watch them all. But start with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles because it is hilarious and it's great. And even though it's from the 80s and all of our humor is different now, I still think it holds up. A lot of those movies from back then do. But I just wanted to point all of these out because I thought it was too awesome not to. And Ryan has admitted to like 90% of this. So I'm pretty sure I'd never heard him say anything about the Deadpool 2 I like me thing that I just threw in there, but it seems too obvious to me. But he's pretty much admitted to everything else. So just thought you guys would get a kick out of it. If you haven't seen the Deadpool movies, all of them, you need to go see them, but especially Deadpool and Wolverine, it hits for a third. Like for, you know, we don't know if it's the end of the saga for him, but usually the third movies aren't as good as the other ones. And this one holds up with the exception of Die Hard with a Vengeance. I know because Die Hard 2 sucked. Anyway, I could go down this rabbit hole forever. I so appreciate you guys watching. I hope you liked this kind of video because I love diving into Easter eggs and movies and trivia and commentary and all that other stuff. So more of that to come in the future. If you like it, be sure to stick around for that. Leave comments if you want me to talk about anything else. And hey, stick around. Got a lot more music stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks. So you're not going to want to miss that either. Thanks so much for being here. And remember, don't wait for life to be easy to be happy.